I'll let them in as we go, and I'll just start telling everybody a little bit about the summit. So everybody kind of generally keeps themselves on mute unless they've got a question, and when we open it up, then people can come on live and ask what they want to ask. Or you can also drop any messages or questions in the comments box as we go as well, and I'll keep an eye on those and come to those if you don't want to kind of come on face to face, because not everybody always does. But just to introduce the summit a little bit, really it's for me, I called it the Self-Rediscovery Summit because that's kind of been my journey. I think a lot of us come to kind of self-rediscovery with the idea that we're looking to explore, fix and change who we are in our humanness, I guess. And I guess this kind of, to an extent, you know, we can dance as who we want to dance as in form. But more importantly, I think for me, what I learned was it's more about seeing deeper who we are already beyond all of that in our wisdom, and how we can kind of move from there. So that was kind of the reason I set this summit up, because that's something that I saw in my own journey. And so we've been hearing from lots of different speakers. It's really lovely how many have kind of joined us to share, and on a variety of topics, and of course we're always pointing towards the same wisdom as we go along in each topic, so it doesn't really matter what we're exploring, and that's kind of the beauty of it for me as well. And yeah, we're live most Fridays, and if anybody has any questions, then I'm always kind of on hand to answer in between as well. So you can either email me, or I also have the Self-Rediscovery Facebook community, which I often am kind of live, so I can speak to questions that way as well. But yeah, to introduce you, I'll keep it very very quick so we can hear more from you. But it's an honour to have you here, really, because I think, again, I've heard so much and had so many insights from listening to you speak, and so I was really chuffed that you would come on and share with us. And I like kind of how you talk about how there's nothing, you know, there's nothing broken and we're never lacking. So I'm looking forward to that. And yeah, although you don't really need introducing, I liked a part of your story, actually, and it was how you talked about you're a self-declared unhappy psychiatrist for many years. And then on April Fool's Day, one day you were listening to Sydney Banks, and that awoke a transformational new awareness, and an insight that significantly changed the course of your mental well-being and also altered your approach to clinical practice. So I'm excited to hear about that, and how you saw, again, it says you saw that mental health was not something that needed constant monitoring and repairing, but something that was always innate and whole. And as a result, you've seen people's innate mental well-being reawakened despite labels and diagnoses given to them. And you've witnessed countless stories of hope and change. You've been sharing the 3 principles within your practice for more than 35 years, and you were mentored personally for over 26 years by Sydney Banks, which is amazing. So you've been doing loads of wonderful things, and also your lovely wife is joining us in a couple of weeks to share herself as well. So I'm excited for that. But usually now is the time where I kind of just hand over to you, and I often begin with I think people like a personal journey. So I don't know whether that's a place you'd like to start and tell us a little bit about your own journey and experience with the insight that you've had that we're never broken and there's nothing lacking, or whatever you want to share with us, really.
No, I'm more than happy to do that. You know, I was moved, and I know reading to people is difficult, but I'm also moved before I even tell my own personal story. A few weeks ago, I got an email from a mother who must be close to 80 years old, who brought her daughter to me 35 years ago. And she had been unable to read or write for 4.5 years after dropping out of a prestigious Ivy League school. And I want to read this because this was 35 years ago. We had no books, we had no tapes. I just had something very important happen for me, and I just was sharing it with this young woman, and so I'm going to read this. I'm moved to, okay?
Yeah, perfect.
35 years, she just sent this a further email. I've talked with her, and We've just, anyway, on May 7th, she sent this 35 years ago this week, and I may get moved, so bear with me. Our daughter, Sarah, had several meetings with you in Coral Gables. A few days before, my cousin Frank came across my husband in his office with tears in his eyes. David explained that Sarah's depression showed no signs of improving. Frank said, I insist that you call my Navy friend in Florida. We thought there was nothing Dr. Pettit can do, but to keep Frank happy, we will. They spoke with me. I spoke with Dr. Pettit. Dr. Pettit suggested that Sarah come to Florida, so we acquiesced. She had come home from an Ivy League college at the end of this first semester in 1980. She was depressed, but being naive, we did nothing, thinking that she would get up some morning and go back to school. Finally, we consulted our pediatrician. He referred us to a psychiatrist. And I hesitate to say the name of the school, but otherwise I'm going to be stumbling, but was on faculty at Harvard Medical School. The sad details of 4 years under his care are lost in the mists of memory. The lethargic side effects of medications, not being able to read or write, a 3-week hospitalization, an automobile accident, being stuck with her contemporaries, with progressing through college, no improvement, a dislike of her therapist, who, by the way, she was seeing every day, even when she wasn't in the hospital, 5 days a week. When my husband and I had suggested to this doctor that Sarah change doctors, he replied, if you let her change, she will never get better. December of 1984, she went to an out-of-state hospital for 2 or 3 months. There she was under care of another Harvard colleague, still no improvement. One can understand why my husband was crying when Frank came into his office at the end of April 1985. Sarah saw Dr. Pettit every day for about a week. Actually, it was like 8.5 days. I had asked for 10 days, but they gave me 8.5 days. Not being present in these sessions, I don't know exactly what was said. However, it was all positive. Dr. Pettit himself lived his message. She came home after these 8.5 days and the next week got a lifeguard job at the YMCA. Now, when she came into my office, she was shaking like a frightened animal, and was too frightened to even come into my office. Now, this is a woman who went to an Ivy League school 4.5 years earlier. Within a short time, she was off all medication. She had been on 5 different psychotropic medications. At the end of the summer, she read in the Boston Globe that a college cross-country coach was leaving. So she called that school and got the coaching job. And for the first time ever, started a women's cross-country team.
Wow.
That year, she took a couple of courses and lived in a residence with a few other students. The next fall, she enrolled in a college majoring in mathematics and graduated 4 years later with a 4.0 grade point average, straight A's.
Wow.
Then she attended Columbia University, another Ivy League school, where she got her master's degree in physical therapy. At her 15th high school reunion, she met her husband. And so they've been married like 20 years, or I forget how the math, but 20. They have 4 children, one graduating from this college, one graduating from another college, one heading to another Ivy League school, and the youngest is the Gatorade runner of the year, women runner of the year, and being pursued by a number of colleges for a track scholarship.
Wow.
She just says, we will be forever grateful. P.S. During the pandemic, I Googled Dr. Pettit because she was cleaning out her old address books and found that I was alive and well in Arizona 35 years later. So nice to tell you the rest of the story.
That's beautiful. Such a powerful story.
And the wonderful thing is, Nicole, and it's not about me, it's about the message. There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of those over the last 37 years.
Mm.
And sometimes I know that I've come across really strong to people, and I push people away, and I don't ever mean to. But when you've got something that that everybody has within them, and that all you have to do is to help and unwrap it from the covering of thought that they've placed over it. It's sometimes hard not to be excited about that possibility.
Yeah.
So so I'm glad to tell my own personal journey. I was born and raised in a town of about 35,000 in Illinois. Wonderful parents, loving parents. I was the second oldest of 6 children, 3 boys and 3 girls. Very religious Catholic family. And actually, after I graduated from high school, and I think in retrospect, there was a lot of fear. This God that was supposed to be so loving, but also was ready to do something that no parent would ever do to their children, to send them to an eternity of torment and fear. And I think that paradox of being told on one hand that there was this, what source of life is love, pure love and understanding, and then hearing all the judgment was a paradox. And I actually went to the seminary and was going to, some people have heard this story. I was going to go to a monastery, which blows people away, where you don't talk practically at all, and you pray 7 times a day, and you go to sleep at 7:30, wake at 2:30, and so they did psychological testing for the very first time. Have you heard this story?
No, I haven't actually.
So they did psychological testing for the very first time because they've had some bad experiences. This was in Northwest Iowa. It had been founded the early part of the century by four monks that came over from London, in fact, from the UK so I did this psychological testing in December, and then I was supposed to go the next August, and school ended, and I was waiting to go, and then I got this letter that basically said that the psychological testing, and the abbot really liked me, but he said the psychological testing that he'd prayed to, that he felt he needed to listen to, had said 2 things. And now I know it wasn't in these words, but this was what it said. It said, number 1, there is no way that this young man could tolerate being cooped up in your monastery. And then it's number 2, there is no way your monastery could tolerate having this young man cooped up in your monastery. So,
I love that.
Pardon me?
I love that.
My son and his 4 children, he's got 2 sets of twins, and his wife, they actually visited that monastery about a year ago.
Oh, really?
And they had twin girls and twin boys under 6. And he told the monk in the gift shop that story, that I had been rejected. And the monk said, "Well," he said, I bet you're happy that happened." He said, "I am." So I sat out of school for a year then, because I had 2 years of college, and I boxed Golden Gloves, and I worked in a factory, and then I realized I wanted to be a physician, and I went back to medical school, and pre-med and medical school, and I was a surgeon. I was in surgery training for 2 years, and we were 36 out of every 48 hours, and twice a month we were on 96 out of 108, where you slept very little. I slept for 45 minutes twice during a 60-hour period. And I think maybe in one way that I even went into a program that demanding was, it probably kept me from being depressed. Because when you're working 36 out of every 48 hours, you're either working or sleeping 12 hours out of 48, you know. And so then I went through, I got drafted into the Vietnam War as a doctor for a squadron of pilots. And
Wow.
as a family doctor, I was a family doctor for them for 2.5 years. And that's when I actually was under the commander, who was the cousin of the lady that wrote that letter. So if that wouldn't have happened, Sarah and I would never have met, probably. You know, I mean, life is interesting, isn't it? Fate is interesting.
It is.
So it was during that time that I realized how much the state of mind was related to not only the mental state, but the physical state also. That when people got into chronic mental stress, their body tried to scream out at them louder and louder to ask them to listen. And so I got interested in mind-body medicine, and I did a residency in psychiatry, and then I was chief of psychiatry at the nuclear submarine base in Connecticut for 3 years. And then I got disillusioned because I didn't see everything that I'd learned in 5 years of residency had not helped me help people that much. I mean, I could give them medicines that maybe gave them a little relief, but I never saw anybody get peace of mind from a pill. And I myself was struggling in my marriage, and we actually got divorced during that time. And I loved her very much. She loved me, but we didn't have understanding. We argued about things, and I was immature in my own ways, and going in and out of clinical depression, and so I actually saw 6 psychiatrists over a period of years for my depression, and was never hospitalized, but you know, thought seriously about ending my life a number of times. And so I then quit the Navy, and I went to California, and I became the national program director for a company in California, and I traveled around the United States, and even once did one in Tokyo, Japan, and Canada, but all over the east and west coast of the United States especially, and we were 5-day trainings. And it was during that time that Dr. George Pransky contacted me through my secretary, who was seeing him, and I was invited to come on January 1st, 1983, to his home, and for an open house. And I went there, and Dr. Pransky and I shook hands, and we both knew that we were going to be friends until one of us passed, I mean, forever. And so that was January 1st, and we finally met sometime in March, and for 2 hours, and then I spent some time with him, and then he told me that Mr. Sidney Banks, his teacher, was coming on April Fool's Day for a 3-day weekend, 2.5-day weekend, and that's where I met Dr. Bill Hutcherson, PhD psychologist that I mentioned, who's on this call, because he and I somehow sat next to each other that day in 1983.
I love that it's April Fool's Day.
And an April Fool's Day, and how ironic, because there I was with 26 and a half years of education and a label that I was a mental health professional, which is, I really have trouble not laughing, because I had 0 lectures on mental health. Now, how can I be a mental health professional if all I've had is 800 lectures on mental illness and 0 lectures on mental health? It seems like I would be a mental illness professional. Really?
Yeah.
And as I sat there listening to Mr. Banks, within a few minutes, I realized, oh my gosh, I have been making myself depressed for 21 years intermittently, and sad and angry with my own thinking.
That's so powerful, isn't it?
It was very powerful.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't immediately see that I knew how to stop doing it, but just seeing that I was the one doing it changed everything.
I love that, because so many people kind of always question, well, you know, it's great to understand the 3 principles, but like, what do we do about it? It's quite a common thing that I come across, is that question is like, well, yeah, but that's great, but how can I change it?
Well, the fact is, if you really understand the three principles, you know what to do, and
Yeah,
you know where to listen to, because you're no longer listening to your intellect. You're listening quietly to the wisdom that's inside of you.
yeah,
And that was an incremental process, and it has been for 37 years, to just have to be grateful. To what I tell people is just keep looking. And to me, Mr. I am blown away, and I know for some people I'm another one of those old Sydney Banks fogies, but I am blown away at people that come to me that have been around the principles for 4, 5, and 6 years, that have not listened to Mr. Banks's videos and have not read his books.
mm,
And it just doesn't make sense to me any more than if somebody was a physicist and they were trying to learn about relativity, and they were listening to second and reading the books of second, third, and fourth generation physicists from Einstein, instead of reading Einstein's 1905 papers at least a couple of times
I love
on
that.
relativity, because he was the one that had the insight. And Mr. Banks was the one that had the peek into the mind of God, that to me is one of the biggest peaks that any human being has ever had a chance to have.
Yeah, and
And
for me as well, that's how it feels, is just, yeah, so it's so profound, but it's also quite simple when you realize, when you see it, it's like, oh, in some ways.
and I hear so many people, Nicole, that what they've heard of, because of who they've listened to, what they've heard primarily is you're feeling, you're thinking.
Mm.
And so when something really happens, a loss of somebody or loss of income or whatever, all they have is to sit around saying, I'm thinking my feeling.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, that doesn't help much. But if you've seen the spiritual side, which was the whole message of SIDS, that universal mind is the true, it's God. It's what's behind life is pure love and understanding. And there is nothing in the universe that's separate from that energy.
yeah, and it feels to me that that's kind of what we're listening for. I don't know. Yeah, it's
That's
to
what
me.
takes the fear away.
Yeah, it's kind of, yeah, I was just chatting about this with a client actually, and we were talking about kind of looking in the direction of wisdom or mind or whatever kind of label you have for it, I guess, that
Right.
feels the most powerful way to kind of feel into the principles, or get a feeling for what they're about, I guess. I don't know if that is true for you, but feels true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Long Beach videos were made in the year 2000, and Sid had his experience in 1973.
Mm.
So for 27 years, he refused to be videotaped. So when people wonder about it being a cult, I just start laughing, because I say, what cult leader do you know refused to be videotaped for 27 years because he didn't want followers? That he would talk to clergy, he would talk to doctors, he would talk to educators, he would talk to mental health professionals, but he did not want followers.
Mm.
And one of the first things Mr. Banks says on those at www.sidbanks.com, if nobody has not looked there, on one of the first things he says is, you are guided every moment of your life by a spiritual energy.
Mm.
And he's talking about universal mind. And he also makes it clear, please don't believe anything that I say because I've said it, because then you're a follower. Don't be a follower. And I mean the same thing too.
Yeah.
I would never want anybody to believe anything I said because I said it.
Yeah, for me it feels like it's almost this kind of sensing into your own truth of what it means for you and your own.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That, like he said, it's different to be a listener. I'm preparing a talk for the London conference. In fact, we're going to do a separate one-day thing for the National Health Service in London. I don't know if you know that. Everybody's invited. They're
Amazing.
inviting 10,000 people for free
Wow.
now. I don't know whether they'll get 100 or 3,000. You know, it depends on their marketing. But I'm preparing my talk, and I forget even what the thought was, but it was what we were talking about earlier. Just that I was telling people, please, I don't want you to believe anything I say just because I say it, but I am asking that you listen with a mind open to hearing something new.
Yeah, we were saying about making sense of it for ourselves in our own form of it, I think, as well.
Yeah, of just listening quietly, and if because there's a place of truth inside of all of us that when our mind is quiet even a little bit, we know when we hear truth. Something goes off inside of us.
Yeah, I was writing about that as well today, actually, because it's so many people, and you know, myself included in the past, have kind of looked for insight, and we almost chase it, but actually
with our intellect.
Yeah, and it's kind of like the worst place to to start looking. And also just kind of, I think the times where I've had the biggest insights are where I've been listening to, say, you or another speaker, and I've just been moved to tears, but I don't really know why. And for me, that's where it feels like the change happens, is something has been kind of unlocked and fallen away, but without really anything happening. And
without any effort, huh? Yeah, without any effort. The metaphor that I often use is that's been real for me is that this wisdom, this divine thought system, is like a harp or a flute or a quiet instrument. It's always playing. It's always trying to guide us. But it's hard to hear a flute or a harp playing if you've got a marching band playing in your head. It's not that the flute isn't playing. It's playing 24/7.
I love that. That's gorgeous.
So if something touches us, it doesn't take much. If something touches us that allows us to our mind to quiet even for a moment, you know. I was talking to a couple of days ago, and she said, I'm trying to focus on living in the present. So she has a 4-year-old. I said, have you noticed how much effort your 4-year-old works on focusing to live in the present? She said, well, she doesn't. She just lives there. I said, yeah, that's the point.
It's so true. Yeah, it's so tempting. You know, my own journey to arrive here was through kind of constant seeking to fix myself, because I had chronic fatigue syndrome. And I was constantly seeking in self-help, and so when I came across the principles, it was like, oh, brilliant, now I don't need to do anything at all. It was such a relief to kind of just see how it worked. And I think that again speaks to the transformation and the powerful kind of story that you shared at the beginning. It's just amazing what can fall away when we see how it really works.
And that's a beautiful story, because a lot of people have trouble, you know, when I talk about that our physical and emotional symptoms are love letters, that they're not only alarms and information, but they're trying to protect us, given respect for our free will and our level of understanding. So when, for instance, when somebody, this one lady that was depressed for 41 years, her husband said there was times she would sleep 20 hours a day. Well, people would say, well, how can you say that's a love letter? Well, if 3 minutes of upsetting thinking creates a measurable biochemical dysregulation in your brain and your neurotransmitters and your neural circuitry, 3 minutes, and it can be measured, then having her asleep, if she's spending 90% of the time she's awake in some form of stressful thinking, it's better that she only have 4 hours a day to be awake.
Yeah.
Because it's limiting the damage that she's doing. Yeah. Does that make sense?
It does. And that's very much how I kind of made sense of my chronic fatigue in the end. It was like, oh no, I needed, because it stopped me from walking. And before that, I had been, doing 3 jobs and my MBA, and and I burnt out. And so it was just, now I see it was my body's way of sort of shutting it down and being like, no, hang on a minute, listen, stop. And so I was hoping you'd talk about the love letters, because I've heard you say that before, and I love that kind of analogy. So I don't know if other people have heard that before, but it was something I loved about what you've said before.
Well, actually, that, it's been an evolution of insight for me, because I first saw that our symptoms were alarms. Like, the people that have panic attacks, it's hard for them at first to realize that that's a gift. Like, so what are you talking about, doctor? And I said, well, it's a gift because if you're driving on a county road or a country road in the UK, where they have the ribbing, I don't know what you call it there. Do you know what I mean? The ribbing, the indented.
Yeah.
What would you call it? What name?
Like the hard shoulder, I think.
Hard shoulder, is that what they call it? Where there's ribbing, and if you kind of get distracted or start to fall asleep, and you may get it for the ditch, you may flip over and people die, right? Mm-hmm. And so you hit the hard, would you say the hard shoulder, and what does it do when you hit it?
Yeah, it kind of jolts you.
It wakes you up, doesn't it? And you get back on the road. And so I said to the people that have the panic attacks, I said, is the hard shoulder...
I think it's rumble strips, actually. I've been corrected. I don't know. Clearly don't know the language for the road rules.
I call it rumble strips, yeah, but they could call it in different things in different places. But so I said, when you hit the rumble strip, are the rumble strips your friend or your enemy?
Mm. Yeah.
They say, well, they're my friend. They wake me up and save me from hurting myself. And it's the same way with, if we're creating so much biochemical dysregulation that our body and our brain can't adapt to it without causing significant epigenetic changes that in the long run are going to make things more difficult, it tries to wake us up, and it discharges a massive amount of norepinephrine into our bloodstream. Mm. If a nurse came in right now and did that to me, the right amount, I would suddenly have trouble breathing. I would be sweating. My heart would be going 160. I'd be having nausea and lightheadedness and fainting feelings and hot flashes and cold flashes, and I'd be having the equivalent of a panic attack. Mm. And the reason that a lot of people don't realize it is because maybe 15, 20 minutes before, they don't even know it, but they felt uncomfortable stewing and fretting about something. So they go and they're watching their favorite soccer team or something, and suddenly this is happening. And they say, how could that have anything to do with my thinking? Yeah. And so I asked people, you've probably heard, I've probably treated over 8,000 people with panic attacks. Wow. And I say in the 2.5 to 3 hours prior to your panic attack, was there a minimum of 20 to 30 minutes where you were actively stewing, fretting, thinking upsetting thoughts, or worrying about something? Well, they say absolutely. All but 2, and I'm not going to have them take a lie detector test. So even the physiology of, I've got an article somewhere, and I can find it if you're interested, on 5. I don't know if you know about the physiology of chronic fatigue syndrome, but what happens is the body literally switches over to the physiology of a hibernation of the bear to conserve energy. Yeah. Because and to keep the person from hurting themselves. Yeah. So it makes it hard for them to do anything, because when they're at the level of understanding that they're doing things before, they're causing more harm. Yeah. So they're put literally into a physiology of hibernation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally does. But what I find interesting is that we then kind of resist that. often in our experience. So if we're in pain or kind of anything like that, we kind of resist it rather than seeing it, like you say. And I think that's quite profound to see it that way. Is like, oh great, it's kind of telling you something, there's information in it. And I think that's quite powerful to see it that way, rather than kind of, I guess like Sid says, you know, it's if only people knew not to be frightened of their experience of life, that would change the world. And that's how that feels for me. It's like we can actually embrace our experience, you know, all of it, whether we
well, at least accept it where we are. Just at least accept it, and to know there's information in it. But the tricky thing is then not to go looking for it with your intellect, because you're not going to find it with your intellect. You just accept your experience, be in the present moment as best as you can, with an open mind and an open heart, and you will see. And that the idea of physical symptoms being love letters came when I spoke at the Aviva conference in Spain. In November. I was in the shower that morning and just quietly, not really thinking about it, but just with a quiet mind. And that suddenly came to me. Wow, it's not just alarms and information. They're really love letters. Symptoms are love letters trying to wake us up, to bring us back home. There's a series in the United States called NCIS, the Naval Criminal Investigative Service. Have you ever seen that?
I've heard of it. Yeah.
Well, Leroy Jethro, there wasn't on the, he left. He's got his own show now, but about 4 years ago, it's been on 17 years, so that says something. It really has a heart. It really has a heart. And but there was this character who was a good-looking young agent who was a little arrogant on his good day and a lot arrogant on his bad days. And he would get really flippant and not, you know, being in where he should be, where his mind should be. And Leroy Jethro Gibbs would come up in the back and whack him in the back of the head. And his name was DeNozo. So I called it a Nozo head slap. So I said, you know, every once in a while, if we get really lost, we'll get a DHS. People say DHS, Department of Health Services. I said, no, DeNozo head slap. It's trying to wake us up to get back in the present moment.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think as well, it's for me, it's applicable no matter what the discomfort is. I think any kind of resistance or any discomfort is also still trying to teach us something, or has the capacity to teach us something, I guess, when we see something differently about it. One of my favorite poets is Jeff Foster. I don't know whether you know him, but he talks about how feelings arise to be held, not healed. And that was something that really spoke to me, and I guess kind of also relates to your phrase of kind of never broken, nothing lacking.
Well, I don't know if I want to hold on to a negative feeling. I think accepting it is different than hold. I mean, I haven't read him, so it may mean hold it in a, you know, in just without judgment. You know.
Yeah, I think that's what he means.
Yeah. And one of the most powerful. You've heard this story of my friend who was a survivor of the Israeli army, and all 9 of his comrades were killed in battle. And they were hit by a rocket. Have you heard that?
No.
Well, I met him in 2008 when I went to Israel with Rabbi Chaim Levine, and we've become really good friends. And he's spoken at the London conference. But so 12 years later, he still has those memories of that rocket hitting and trying to save 1 or 2 of his 9. They were a company of 10. He was the only one that survived. He lost his eye during it, but otherwise his brain was not injured, his internal organs, and he went through a terrible, you know, PTSD and depression, and I met him in 2008, so now it's 12 years later, and he's got his degree in psychology, and he's a therapist for soldiers with PTSD, and he and his friends went to, you know, what you said about if people were just not afraid of their experience. And what allows people not to be afraid of their experience is knowing that the only experience you can have is a thought-created experience.
Yeah.
And we can even talk about the physiology of physical, but it has to go through the cortex or you don't experience it. That's why people have rescued people, taken children and rescued children from their car, and only then later, after they got the children to safety, realized they had bones sticking out of both arms. Because that's not where their thoughts were.
Yeah.
Okay. So he just a few months ago, now it's probably a year ago, he and his two friends go to Barcelona, and he's given me permission to tell this story. And they walk out of the airport and it's a national holiday. They didn't know that. So the rockets are going off. There's explosions in the air. There's fireworks, big explosions. Now his brain, his reptilian brain doesn't know that it's a national holiday. So it suddenly has his heart going 160. He's having trouble breathing and is profusely sweating, and he's ready for battle. Now, most people would be frightened by that experience, Nicole, unless they had understanding. But because the understanding that it's not a belief, it's a true knowing that Ofer has, he just said, I just immediately sat on the curb. Immediately. I did nothing. I didn't do anything with my thinking. I knew it was a thought-created experience that would pass.
Yeah.
Now that's powerful.
It is.
Within 5 minutes, he said my pulse was normal. My breathing was normal. I was no longer perspiring. In fact, I felt a really deep level of calm. And I looked up at the fireworks and I said, is this cool or what?
That's amazing.
And they went and had a beautiful weekend in Barcelona. They did not have to take the next plane back to Tel Aviv. Now, for people there that still have flashbacks and stuff, please don't hear a should, but hear hope. Hear hope. If you can learn to leave those flashbacks alone, every time they pass through with no attention, they will lose part of their, in Star Trek terms, they will lose part of their force field. And there will come a day when those thoughts being awakened of past memories will be literally be neutral, because you will at a deep level know that it does not exist in the present moment. It happened then, it's over long time ago for most things. Gratitude, and it has no power. And once it has no power, then there's no avoidance. What do you have? You don't have to worry about what TV shows you watch or what movies or where you go or who you see or what, because you're not frightened by any, you're not on guard for those memories being awakened because they have no power anymore.
Yeah, and then there's nothing to accept either, because it's just kind of like acceptance has happened.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I don't know if you wanted to open it up to questions sometime, or.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. Has anybody got any questions that wants to come on and come on live and share? I'm going to see if I can. Who's is? Oh, yeah.
Hello.
Oh, hang on. Yep, here we go.
Yeah. So I have a question.
Yes, perfect.
Okay. So my question is that I have this habit of trying to fix my thoughts, my past situations and experiences, and the more I try to fix them, the worse they get. So I'm aware that they're just thoughts, but it's still like they seem to have the power over me.
So what's your question?
So I mean, how can I like stop trying to fix my thoughts or analyze them?
No one can make you do that. How you say the name? Is it Karen?
Yeah, it's Karen.
Yeah, Karen. No one can make you do that, but with sufficient. See, anytime you understand how a system works, then whatever the system is, whether it's an automobile or whether it's anything, once you understand how the system works, you know from your own wisdom and knowledge, you know what to do. So what I would say is that, and it's incremental. It was for me that you're at a level of understanding when anything still is you are still innocently causing yourself emotional pain with your thinking. It's an opportunity to hear something deeper. Now, for me, I don't know where are you, Karen? Where do you live?
I'm from India.
And have you watched Mr. Banks's videos on www.sidbanks.com?
Yes, I have.
All of them, or part of them, or once, or?
Oh, yeah, actually, I've seen like all of them, but the thing is that I'm not so active because I just get caught up in my thinking while watching them. But I've seen them.
Oh, so you get caught up in your thinking when you're watching the videos?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And have you read, how many of his 6 little short books have you read?
I have not read his book. I have read Clarity by Jamie Smart, and I have read some other books regarding 3 principles.
So when I talked about the second and third generation, people reading second and third generation physicists on relativity, did that kind of resonate with you, that it makes sense to go to the source of the person that had the insight?
Actually, I came to this meeting, but I could not hear the voice. So that time I could watch the video, but not hear that.
Oh, okay. So, well, that's what that one of the points that I made, that that the a lot of people, all that they've heard that from a lot of, some, and we're all on this journey, but some of the second and third generation people, that it was like us years and years ago, I suppose, is what they've heard is that you're thinking, you're feeling. And that's true, but that's a very small part of the Venn diagram of these universal principles that allowed Mr. Banks to actually he lectured 10 PhD physicists from MIT for 3 days and was invited back to teach them for 3 more days. So my point is that there's a depth to understanding these principles that is endless. And he says, if there's an infinite number of doors of understanding of these principles. And I would just continue. I would encourage you to read. I would encourage you to read each one of the 6 small books, because you never know which one's going to really hit you if you can allow yourself to. And I think it is important that you follow your own wisdom. If you listen to the videos for 10 minutes and then you get caught up in your thinking, it might make sense to stop listening. But maybe the next time start there and listen until you get caught up. You're on a journey, and direction is the important thing. It sounds like you've had a sense that it is an inside out world. Am I correct?
Yeah.
What else have you seen? We sometimes, as individuals ourselves, and even as coaches or practitioners, we focus on what people haven't seen. But what have you seen? And has it made some difference in your life, what you have seen?
Yeah, like earlier I had like too many thoughts. I was afraid of them. But recently I listened to your podcast with Greg and Harry, and I would listen to them while sleeping and also while I would wake up. So these days I'm feeling calmer and more peaceful.
Great. You're going in the right direction. I would encourage you, when you feel comfortable doing so, to either read The Missing Link or The Enlightened Gardener. There's The Enlightened Gardener and The Enlightened Gardener Revisited, which are 4 psychologists talking to a gardener that's enlightened, the Sid character. And Second Chance and Quest of the Pearl, to me, are very, very powerful. And Second Chance was really written, it's the only one that I know of that was actually motivated by it came from a direct experience of somebody who came up to him who was struggling with what he thought was going to be terminal cancer. So you'll be moved. You're going in the right direction, and the more it's like anything. The more you have insights, you're going to see more. Like Sid said, every time you have an insight, it will appear to you that the world has changed.
Wow.
Right? The external world has changed, and what he's pointing to is really, that at the source of the universe is pure love and understanding. And that when we're not caught up either in fear, insecurity, or ego, that's all that's left is love and understanding.
Yeah, that's what I had, like, I don't know, around a week ago, thoughts which were like scaring me. Suddenly, some experience happened, and all those thoughts, they all turn into love and understanding, and all the feelings about those thoughts, they just became positive. And now I'm not afraid of those thoughts, but still there are many thoughts which just scare me.
Well, what are you open to me sharing something opposite of what you just said?
Yes.
Would it be nice for you if you saw that the thoughts are not scaring you, that you're scaring yourself with those thoughts? That's
yes. Yeah.
It's a power shift from thinking that the thoughts have the power to scare you, and to start to realize that the only person that can scare you is in the same underpants that you're in. And I bet there's only room for you.
I love that.
Do you hear that? Does that make sense, Karen?
Yeah, but it's like
yeah, but no, don't give me any yeah buts. You reflect on that. That the only person that can frighten you, and if I would encourage you in the missing link to read the chapter on thought, where it says, that your thoughts are neutral. I could get, if I got myself tired enough a few times in my life, I've had thoughts of killing people. But I wasn't, because of what I knew, I wasn't frightened by the thought. The thought didn't scare me. It just allowed me to get quiet, and I realized how exhausted I was. I needed some sleep. It was very simple. The quality of my thinking, the feeling level, and the quality of my thinking lets me know when it is time to just get present and allow me to listen. So once your understanding gets to a certain level, you might still frighten yourself every once in a while with your thinking, but you will know who's doing the frightening. It's coming. There's only one source of that. So
thank you. I wish
you well. I wish you well.
Yeah. Before I go, I have a last question.
Okay.
Can 3 principles help me find my life purpose?
Well, the 3 principles aren't something that helps people. They just are. They're an explanation of what's at the source of the universe and how it works, and how we use the power of the only mind that exists in a personal way to create our experience in life. So here's the deal. The more that you're at peace, the more that you're listening to wisdom, you will, first of all, to me, our purpose in life is to realize that we're divine energy in a form, and that we want to manifest what that is, which is pure love and understanding. Now, as far as any other gifts we've been given, and specific things that we have to offer the world to make a difference, in a quiet mind, when you're not thinking of trying to figure out what your purpose is or what your purpose in life is, you'll see what your purpose in life is.
Great. Wow, that's great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, okay, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. That was much my kind of experience as well. It was kind of like getting that foundational understanding of who I was in terms of wisdom, and then from there I learned that we can kind of play in who we want to be, or as well. Yeah, and I think as well, just about kind of rereading Sydney Banks, my experience is you can read it once and hear something, and then read it again and hear something completely new.
Linda and I did this course called the Healers Clinic. We're finishing with our second group. We had 9 people. We limited it to 9 people. It was a 10-month course. I see one of the people on here from Romania, all the way from Romania, and he's on this call here. And we, during that 10-month course, we had people read. We had reading assignments there was 22-hour sessions and 10 one-hour sessions. So what's that, 50 sessions during the 10 period. So 50-hour sessions. And we had people reading before each one, so that during the 10 months, we covered all 6 books.
Wow.
And we covered all the videos. And I thought we were doing that for these people, these 9 people. Wrong answer. Because here I am 37 years into it. I have read many of those books 15 to 25 times. And I would get blown away by things that I read that I had not seen.
Yeah.
I had not seen it, Nicole. I would go to Linda and I'd go, holy cow. If Sid was still alive, I'd be going to him saying, I like this new edition of your book. And I don't know if you've ever heard him on the Hawaii tapes where he talked about somebody called him up, and that was me. And I told him he could rat me out anytime, but he never did. Because it was the 4th time that I read Second Chance, that at the end of the first chapter, when Richard says to Jonathan, what is your definition of success? And Jonathan quietly looks out to sea and says, very simple, happiness and contentment. And Richard says, is that all? And Jonathan says, isn't that enough? The first 3 times that I read that, I was not ready to have that register in my brain. So I called Sid up in Canada, in Salt Spring. I said, I love this new edition. I had a very busy I was buying the books by a box of 60 at a time for my patients. Yeah. I was handing them out. There's the only book we had, 1989, 80, and I said, I love this new edition of Second Chance. I love this question at the end that you put in at the end of the first chapter. Well, he started laughing hysterically, Nicole. And I said, pardon me, Mr. Banks, but what's so damn funny? He said, Bill, I've never changed one word of that. So, even people that have read it, I've read them 15 times and they still are so rich. Because as you have insights, your ears change and your eyes change. And you get a little more earwax out of your ears, psychologically, spiritually. So you can hear more. You can hear more. Yeah.
Lovely. We have Suzanne also. I'm going to unmute you, Suzanne. She has a question.
Hi.
Hi, Suzanne.
Hi.
Where are you, Suzanne?
I'm in Sweden, and I heard that you were supposed to be here but couldn't come because of the COVID. And
I was, and my grandfather was from down in South Sweden, near that second largest lake in South Sweden.
Yeah. Okay. I'm in Gothenburg.
Yes, I was going to go visit there. Yeah.
Yeah, you were, but you had
maybe next year. Who knows? Maybe 2 years from now. Whatever. Anyway, I was. I was excited. Yeah.
So I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I have a question, which is kind of a burning question that I've had and I can't seem to find an answer to it. And it's about antidepressants and hormones. So it's a 2-part question. So I understand, the depression part, that we think so much, and then at one point the body, the kindness in the design kind of closes us down and all that. But the antidepressant, so if it's our thoughts that are creating our feelings, and it's our thoughts that is always creating our experience, they'll give you a pill called an antidepressant. And I cannot see how a pill could stop you from thinking less. So it might be a too complicated a question, but what would that do? What would an antidepressant do so that you don't think those thoughts?
You're making assumptions that to me aren't true.
Okay. Good. Okay. Okay.
Now, can you, and I say this not in judgment, can you tell me your exposure to the principles and especially your exposure to Mr. Banks's material? How many years?
Yeah, I have been here for 2.5, almost 3 years now, and I
Okay.
have listened to every one of his talks, and I have read 3 of his books, and I've read everybody else, and I go to these things all the time.
Which one of the Sid's books have you read?
The Missing Link, a few times, and then The Gardener, The Enlightened Gardener. And the last one he brought out, which was, I can't remember the title, I was thinking of it when you were saying it before, the one that he wrote with his first, his very first.
Oh, Linda Queering. Yeah, that was really,
yeah.
that wasn't, that was from early on when they were together. Yeah, okay. So she wrote that actually, but says that it was from their work together, right? Linda Queering. Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Okay, but just let me add, because the second part is the hormones, because that I really feel like I do understand the principle. I live it. So when you say that to me, I get it's good. I want to hear that. I want to hear that I'm thinking completely wrong. But it's the same thing that I have with the hormones, because the hormones, like my daughter will just cry. She's 17 and she just cries, and I had it before I had menopause and stuff. So it's the same. If the thoughts create our feelings, how can the hormones go then in? So it's really the same question in kind of a two-part thing.
Yeah, I just finished a 16-hour course with 302 slides.
Oh, okay.
Called The Mind, Brain, Body, Behavior Connection, Why Understanding Universal Principles Changes Everything. So I can give you the 2-minute answer.
That's fine. That's fine.
You can consider sometime. And do you know of those 16 or 14 hours that I did in the UK for it's called The Real Change. They're on our Linda and my website too. The doctors are. Do you know our website, the Doctors Pettit, DRS?
Yes, I've been there. Yeah.
Well, under the resources, there's One Cause, One Cure, and then there's Stories of Hope, and in every major diagnostic category, right? And so it was my son calling, but I will I decline that, and let's see if I get back. How do I get back here?
Just push the X.
The X, okay.
All right, if it's on your phone.
Yeah, can you see me?
I can see you.
Yeah, okay. Well, then that's important. That's what's important, I guess, if people can see me and hear me. So let me do my best here. Our thoughts create our feelings, but our experience, it doesn't have to, we can have any feeling if we're not afraid of our feelings. It doesn't take away our mental well-being. Hormones have no power. I mean, there's even a book by Robert Sapolsky called Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers, and another one, a 700-page book called Behave, where he shows all the research. And he says hormones cannot cause anything, because, let's see, how do I explain this in a short period of time?
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. See, what the antidepressants do is that they try to alleviate some of the biochemical dysregulation that the person is innocently creating with their thinking.
Okay.
Okay, so as it does that, it can give people a little bit of relief, because it's like if you have fresh spring water coming out of the mountains into a lake, and some company starts throwing garbage in it, well, you can throw disinfectant then in the water to keep the water drinkable, but it would be really nice to stop throwing the garbage in.
Yeah.
Okay, so the more people have, there you are, the more people have understanding of their experience, it doesn't matter what, and at the risk of being stoned, I've had many women come to me. It started in 1990s, and then I started to realize it, who had severe premenstrual dysphoria, executives heads of companies that for 5 days had to turn their company over to somebody else, right? And once they got sufficient understanding, I remember this one lady, she said, my gosh, the last 2 months, I didn't even know it was that time of the month.
Mm.
I had no physical or emotional symptoms. Could it be the peace of mind that I'm getting?
Yeah. Yeah, I
So,
guess so. Yeah.
okay, so then when I went to it really made sense when I went to the National Institute of Health, and the head of the endocrinology said, there is absolutely, with our fine-tooth ability to measure hormonal changes, there is no difference in the hormone changes that occur in women who have symptoms and women who don't.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. None. Zero. Nana.
So it's all just made up then?
No, it's not made up. If you're in a stressed state of mind, again, remember we talked about symptoms being alarm systems?
Yeah.
So that woman whose premenstrual dysphoria completely disappeared, about 6 months later, she got somewhat caught up in her thinking, and she had symptoms at about 20% of what she used to. And instead of being frightened by it or upset that she was having them, she said, oh my gosh, thank you. Yes, I've been stewing about this 2 or 3 hours a day, and my body gave me an alarm. It woke me up. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay.
It's a whole new way to see life. Hormones do not have the ability, nor do genes. Hormones will not make people more aggressive or more sad. They will if you're sad, you'll be sadder. If you're aggressive, you'll be more aggressive if you give somebody testosterone.
Okay. Okay.
There's massive hormonal changes that occur with childbirth. Massive.
Yes, yes, exactly.
If people are in a healthy state of mind, they don't get postpartum depression. But if they're stressed, and sometimes understandably so, because sometimes it takes a lot of understanding if you're not haven't got support, or you know boom 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 boom, but it's not being caused by the hormones.
Mm.
And I mean, I'm limited in my time here. I would encourage
I get it.
you.
Yeah. It's just the first question I
developing.
get. Yeah. Yeah. It's just the first question you get when you try to explain, well, what about hormones, or what about antidepressants, or that's so, and I never know what to say. And
and I would encourage you sometime. The course is going to be put up, in sometime. It'll be worth your time to go through it a little bit at a time. And I'm going to be doing a course probably starting in July, that's going to be seeing the symptoms and the diagnoses of all the ICD-10 and ICD-11 and DSM-5 in the United States through the eyes of the principles.
Yeah.
Great.
So I think it might be helpful for you. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Great.
Dan.
Yeah.
We have another question from Vera. Is that okay?
Sure.
Vera, I'm going to unmute you. Okie doke.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Hello. Yes. Where are you? Where are you from? Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Vienna, Austria.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful.
So I'm a little nervous. I hope I get this across straight, because English is not my native language. I have a question. I made this up. So if I'm, for example, a witness of a car accident that happens and I see it, I'm aware that I experience my feelings through my thinking, but I'm also not sure about if I'm still in the understanding of an inside out feeling or an outside in, because I'm of the understanding that this car accident is the cause for my thinking in that moment. So it's an outside event that triggered my feelings. Is that correct, or am I looking in the wrong direction completely?
Well, at your level, again, I'm trying to understand, even as I try to give an answer at what the base understanding is. Can you tell me, have you read Mr. Banks's books? And
I have read one book, The Enlightened Gardener, and now I'm reading Michael Neal's book, and I have watched the Hawaii series. I've been in touch with the principles since 3 or 4 years, and then I somehow forgot about it, you know, and then I always, somewhere I find a book or a quote or a video, and whenever I listen to that videos, then I hear something that's resonating within me.
Sure. I would encourage you to continue your journey through Mr. Banks's books. I sincerely do that, because it'll help you access your own wisdom to see the answers. But so tell me if you had 5, you don't need 10 different people. If you took 5 people and they witnessed the same accident or the same thing that happened, their experience is going to be really different.
Yeah.
Even that's why police have trouble finding out what really happened.
Right.
Because what they saw in the state of mind, especially if their eyes were being contaminated by their own past experiences, sometimes they have trouble telling what really happened, because 5 people who were right there say things that are contradictory. I saw this one time when I was in my 10-month fellowship in the principles in 1984, okay? And there was a bank robbery, and they took hostages, a lot of hostages in Miami. They were robbing banks, it seemed like twice a week in Miami at that time. And these guys took hostages, and then they tried to get away with 2 or 3, so they left a lot of the hostages. So they tried to interview them one at a time to get the description of these robbers. And they didn't do a good job of protecting, you know, the person that was being interviewed. So my patient came to me and said, I listened to 3 or 4 people describe these people, and all of their description were not only different from each other, they were different from my description of them. So I guess what I'm saying is, yeah, there's something happening out there. And then depending on the state of mind we're in and the level of understanding that we bring to that situation, we're going to experience whatever we experience. And yeah, whatever thoughts we give life to will create our experience. And the feeling level will be part of it.
But there's still things happening outside, right? I'm not
right.
like...
Oh yeah, there's things happening. Yeah. But I will tell you that as people's understanding increases, there's a lot of things that used to people in the resilience field. One of the biggest growing terms is called stress resistance. Are you familiar with that?
No, not really.
So you know what resilience is. It comes from the Latin word to bounce back. It means you get knocked down by something, you get caught up in reaction to whatever it was, a death, a loss, or whatever. But you have the ability to come back quickly. Yeah. Well, stress resistance is you don't even go down. So what a lot of people will say as they have incremental insights into the principles, they'll have a whole list of things that used to get upset by, and they thought had the power to upset them, that no longer upset them at all. Zero. Whether it's road rage, or whether it's their mother-in-law or their parent or their child, or it just doesn't, because they see the innocence, they see the oneness of life, and they see the innocence. They see that people can get lost in their thinking, and they are experiencing the world through a whole different set of eyeballs. So there's a lot of things that they used to have to be resilient about that they don't even experience any stress from. as they more and more experience there is only one source of stress, me, and my innocent misuse of this this gift of thought that takes me away from pure love and understanding. And the more we go through this illusion called life, but again, the more that we see that everything in the universe is the same energy in a different disguise, it even makes that, it kind of, like Sid says, once you realize it's a cosmic joke, you start laughing and you have fun. You don't take it so seriously.
Yeah.
I don't know if
And
that helped at all.
Yeah, it helped a little bit. Thank you very much. And like that cosmic energy moves through us as a thought, and then we put our personal experience based on our life into that thought, and that's the content of the thought. Is that right?
No, we take our level of understanding of which thoughts we give life to. There's some thoughts that come through, that get triggered by something, and you see, you're always, the feeling is like Sid says, it's as natural, very natural to have psychological virus, where you have a negative feeling, whether it's fear or anxiety or envy or anger. But once you know that that's a signal to leave your personal intellect alone, to leave your output from your brain alone, and just get present and listen quietly, then you listen for the divine thought system that's trying to guide you every moment of your life. The metaphor that just came to me about this is, and I think I can do it fairly quickly, is that one of the first things Sid will say, like on The Great Illusion, is that you are guided every moment by a divine thought system. Because that's what you are. You are a divine thought system. The only difference between us and the animals and the plants and the rocks is that we have a free will. And we can be aware that we are the divine thought system in a form. Those two things. Now, I'm going to go quickly. Are you with me? Are you with me? Or we're frozen?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. So I'm gonna take a quick journey from rocks to plants to animals to us. Have you heard me do this?
No, I haven't.
No? Okay. So rocks look like they're just nothing. How can they be divine energy in a form, right? But yet we know from the physicists that they are made of atoms. And inside every atom there's electrons going 3/4 the speed of light, right? So here's the deal. I'm learning more about plants and stuff. Some people probably not much more than I. But plants send out there's messages. It begins with a C. They send out little messages to rocks that are in the area, if they're in a rocky area. And the messages basically say to the rocks, listen, I need some trace elements. It has a list of the trace elements they need. And they say, have you got any of these? And if you can, would you please send some back to me? Okay, so the rock doesn't say, listen, it's the Sabbath, or it's after 5. They don't. They send the trace elements that they have. They don't have the choice to not do it. They don't have a free will. They're part of the divine thought system. So they send the trace elements back to the plants to help them grow better. Now we move to the plants. If you take a bed of flowers and you cover it over on 3 sides and the top, and you leave one end open, Nicole, what happens to those flowers? What do they do? They bend towards the sun. If you leave one end open, the plants will bend to, not 80% of them, every one of them. Even the adolescent flowers bend. That's supposed to be a joke. The adolescent flowers don't fold their arms and say, make me. They bend too. They all bend. And they don't have a choice to not bend. Why? Because they're part of the divine thought system and they don't have a free will.
Mm.
The animals, we could do 10,000 examples. The whales in the United States go down from the northwest up around Canada and where Sid was from. They go to, well, you could see whale watching up there. They go down to the Hawaiian Islands every year and have their babies. And the men go along too. I mean, who's not going to go to the Hawaiian Islands in the winter, right? So the men go, the kids go, even the teenagers go, and they come back from the Hawaiian Islands with their new little baby whale, and they come back to the same place. They know how to get there, and they come back every year with a new song. But all of them have the same song. And the adolescents don't, as they're going by a cruise ship, which we used to have, right? They don't hear Tupac doing hip hop and say, you know, Dad, I'm going with Tupac this year. I don't think this, not going to go with the song that we learned. They don't have a choice. They're part of the divine thought system. Then you get to us humans. We are the only manifestation of the divine thought system that has the ability to know that we are the divine thought system in a form, and that we have a free will to say, I'm going to ignore this divine guidance system, and I'm going to listen to my thinking, and you can't make me not do it. Try.
I love
Did
that.
it. So I hope that helps. The lady that was just questioning. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Was that helpful at all? Maybe.
Yes, it was. And then funny too.
Just take it as a penicillin injection, and maybe in 72 hours, let's see if you don't have some insights that come to you.
Hopefully.
Okay.
Thank
You know, you're in Vienna. Do you know the story of Ignaz Semmelweis?
Ignaz Semmelweis, no?
Yes. Yes. No? So will you write it down?
Yeah, okay.
Ignaz Semmelweis. He and I'm trying to remember that it was before the germ theory. He was a young doctor that came to the birthing place in Vienna, huge birthing hospital, where Monday, Wednesday, and Friday the doctors delivered babies, and Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday the midwives did. And the doctors did autopsies on the women that died, and nobody was wearing gloves. And this was before germ theory. And in the doctor's unit, the death rate got to 18%. 1 in 6 was dying. Healthy women. And the women in the streets knew when the midwives were delivering, because their death rate was only 3%. And he realized that it was from people not washing their hands and doing the, anyway, Ignaz Semmelweis. It's worth
Right. Now
Vienna.
it rings a bell, yes.
Vienna, yeah, okay. Now, there was one doctor that realized what he was saying was true, and he was a famous doctor from Germany. I've got his name here somewhere. And instead of being grateful that he understood it, he went into a deep depression thinking, oh my God, I've killed 30,000 women. And he threw himself under a train and committed suicide. So one of the things that I try to tell people is, if you see something new, if you come out of the darkness with an insight into the light, you either have the choice of looking back in the darkness and beating the shit out of yourself with guilt, or turning towards the light with gratitude and saying, boy, am I grateful I have light to go forward. And we all face that sometimes, whether it's relationships or parenting or whatever. Gratitude is the answer.
That's gorgeous.
Does that resonate?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks for that, Bill.
We all make mistakes.
How are you doing on time? Because we have a couple more questions. I'm just trying to assess.
I'm fine. Yeah.
Jackie, were you still wanting to come on? Because I'm going to unmute you in case you still wanted to ask your question. Oh, yeah, there you go. Oh, trying to unmute you. 1 second. There we go.
There. I think we're unmuted now. Okay. Hi. Yeah. I was just going to pigtail the question that the gal had about antidepressants and hormones. Excuse me. I've never got on antidepressants. Well, I've tried some over the years, but I didn't do well on them. But as far as hormones go, I'm 69 years old and was going through menopause, and I was on hormone patches for years. And about little over a year ago, they thought I had breast cancer, so they abruptly took me off of my patches. Well, that threw me into anxiety, crying jags. Oh, I begged them to let me go back on them, and they wouldn't. So finally, a year later, I think I'm thinking that they're out of my system now, so that I don't feel like I need them. But at that point, I thought, and I've been in this principles for a couple years, and just when I thought I had it figured out, then that happened. I thought, okay, that can't be my thoughts, because they just abruptly, without weaning me off, I just went into a tailspin.
So you're kind of, are you telling me something, or are you asking a question?
Well, I'm asking.
It seems to you like your experience was created, but that threw you into a tailspin was created by the hormones.
Yeah, by going off of them so fast.
Right. Now, are you ready to hear something new, or do you want to be righteously miserable about this?
No, I want to hear something new.
I'm glad that it's over, first of all. And I think that probably part of that is the understanding that it sounds like you've been in a journey on, even in the past year. Would you say even in the past year that you've seen a little more than you saw a year ago?
Oh, yes.
Okay. So I think that's part of what's freed you up and what's made your journey back to where you are now. Now, the grain of truth, have you ever, well, I like the idea of in my course, I did a number of them. I said, here's the facts from research, here's the myth, and here's the grain of truth. Now, the myth would be, the fact is that your hormones, your body did, when it suddenly was taken away from these supportive hormones, that did change the physiology in your body, right? That's a fact. Okay.
Yeah.
The myth then is, and you went into a tailspin emotionally, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So the myth is to you that the hormones are what caused your tailspin.
Yeah.
Now the grain of truth is that the hormones shift was experienced in your body as sensations. You
Right.
experienced sensations that you then had thoughts about. And because, like we were talking about earlier, you didn't fully accept that your experience was a thought-created experience in response to the sensations. See, it's still the only way that we can experience anything is via thought. I'll give you an extreme example. If somebody has cancer that is pushing on a nerve so much, and they try to give them medications, and they get to the point that they can't give them strong enough medicines to stop the pain because it will kill them, then what they have to do sometimes, and I think now they can do it without going into the brain with what they call a gamma knife, they cut the fibers that go from the thalamus up to the cerebral cortex. The thalamus collects all the sensations, the pain sensations, but if you cut those fibers so the person can't think them, they don't feel the pain.
Mm-hmm.
So you were having these sensations that you got upset about in your thinking instead of
Yeah.
accepting. I'm not saying that you should or shouldn't have. It's just that if, to the degree, if you would, there's a level of understanding of the system that you would have gone through that in a different way. And there's no
Right.
shoulds. We always do the best we can, but I'm telling you, the hormones did not cause your experience.
Okay, yeah, because I kept telling, well, I had so many doctors who thought I had breast cancer, then 2 more who thought I don't, and now I'm going back in to find out. And I was begging them, please, they help me, but they wouldn't
Right.
give them to me. And
They didn't want to run the risk of giving you cancer. But I'm just asking you to just take that and try to hear it, but continue your journey in understanding what Mr. Banks was trying to say. And I think that you'll, because there might be something in the future that you also would experience physically, that if you don't know that your physical state does not have the power to take away your mental well-being, you're going to live in fear to some degree of what happens next.
okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
The day that you know, like Elsie Spittle says, the day you know there is absolutely nothing in your body or that anybody else can do that has the power to take away your mental well-being, that's when you become a free person. And it's not a should, but I don't know anybody that wouldn't want to go in that direction.
Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah?
My thoughts now are, okay, I'm actually glad that I'm off of the patches now.
Of course. And you went through it. And aren't you glad that you had at least the level of understanding of the principles that you did have as you did go through that?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Because
Had I have not,
you would have even been more terrified and more frightened, right?
definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
Well, it's
Thank
about
you.
gratitude. You're welcome.
Thanks,
You're welcome.
Becky. And then the final question, I think, is from Khalifa. He says, hello, Bill. In the missing link, Mr. Banks says, the power of thought is not self-created. Would it be possible to explain?
Well, I think he's just saying that it's a gift that we're born with, right? I don't remember the day saying, I'm kind of bored. I think I'm going to start thinking. Well, it's not self-created. None of us have made a decision to start thinking. We're born as thinking creatures. That's all he's saying. Yeah. And hi to Khalifa. I really enjoy Khalifa. He's a good man. Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful. Okie doke. Well, I think that's all the questions. So thank you very much. Yeah, there's some really powerful stuff in that. I'm really, really excited that we've had this conversation, and I'm sure people are as well, because a lot of people catch up on the replay. So I'm sure there'll be a lot of people listening and take it. There's loads of gems in that one.
Yeah, well, I'm glad. But, I mean that. I mean, it sounds self-serving, but I'm going to make it very reasonable, I think. But if people I really encourage you, before you do anything, before you get anything of my courses, I really encourage people to read all 6 of Mr. Banks's books. At least once, if not twice. I've told people sometimes, before you pay me any money, read his 6 books twice, and then if you still have questions, come and ask me. But I just, so people have to, and at the same time, I want people to be guided by their own wisdom. But if people have an interest, I think that my videos on stories of hope in different classifications, I think that the course that I just did, I probably put in 5 to 10 hours for every hour I did on that course. And it's accumulation of 37 years of study and sharing, and I think that it might be helpful to people. So,
yeah, and if you've got any links of anything that you're working on like that, then I will always include them with the replay as well, so that people can find all of that. And also,
you can check with Terry, and she'll give you.
Yeah, and I'll also include the links for all of Sydney Banks's stuff to listen to as well.
And the other thing that I would share with people that have children and stuff is is the www.myguideinside. Are you familiar with that?
No, I'm not.
www.myguideinside.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it's the one of the programs for children that is the most Sydney Banks based. And it's got videos of mine. It's got Sid's videos. It's Sid's books, and it's got programs for children from early grade school, middle school, and high school.
Mm.
And it's been used in 18 different countries so far. And it's done by a woman who was with Mr. Banks from 1978 on, and she was a principal of a high school. And the other woman that helped her do the curriculum has been the head of the director of the National Resilience Center at the University of Minnesota for over 25 years, Kathy Marshall Emerson, Krista Campsell. But www.myguideinside, and it's worth looking for people to go through, because a lot of times people have children or know people that have children or nieces or grandchildren that are struggling, and these little workbooks and curriculum can be gone through. There's a teacher's manual and a student manual for each of the levels.
Oh, that's good. That's great. Yeah,
Really well done.
I'll take a look.
Sid used to say, our hope is in the young people. That's where the hope is. I mean, us old folks, we can, do what we can, but the hope is in the young people. So.
That's lovely. I'll put all those links in the replay. I'm just going to do some announcements about the next few weeks, because for me, I just love staying in this conversation and exploring with lots of different speakers as well, because I think everybody has their own way of explaining it, and that speaks to different people as well. So next, if you need to go, then that's fine, and I'll just carry on with the announcements.
Okay, I've got something at 2 in 20 minutes, but I want to listen to see what's happening.
Yeah. So next Friday, the 29th of May, same time, so 8 p.m. BST, 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, I'm exploring with the wonderful Judy Sedgman. So Dr. Judy Sedgman has been dedicated to sharing the principles of mind, consciousness and thought professionally for more than 30 years. She's worked with many other practitioners of the three principles throughout the United States and around the world as a consultant, a university professor and institute director and mentor. So she's also been a huge leader in development of 3P education, and she's a gorgeous human being, and I love hearing her talk as well. So yeah, she's one of the speakers that's quite often moved me to tears without me kind of knowing what's been said. So so I'm super excited for that one. And then the week after, we also have Jason Shears here to chat about his journey from addiction to creativity. And then, of course, we have the wonderful Linda Pettit joining us to talk about the hidden gifts of grief. So there's some really great speakers coming up. And also, yeah, so I'm really, really excited for all of that. And then,
you know that Judy Sedgman was she was my managing my business practice.
Okay.
That's how she came to know about. She'll talk about it.
Yeah.
She had a management. She managed doctors' businesses, and I needed help business wise, and that's how she became exposed to the principles.
Oh, I think I've heard her talk about that, but I didn't know it was you. So that's cool. Yeah, no, I love Judy. So yeah, that's the next few weeks coming up, and then alongside that, I've been kind of supporting people in exploring the principles, which is something that I love doing. So I've got my Self-Rediscovery school that I've launched. So I have 2 programs, which is Self-Rediscovery Foundations, which is really kind of getting a foundational understanding of the 3 principles. And I will add, Bill, that Sydney Banks's books are on the reading list, so as part of that. And then also my other program is Unravel, and that's really from the insights that I had about kind of, like you were saying, we have free will and we can kind of dance in who we want to be as well. So that's kind of what that program's all about as well. So it's just something I'm creating that I'm having fun with. So just love kind of exploring the principles and keep having these conversations as well. It's a lovely way to spend a Friday with the summit. So So yeah, those are all kind of there for anybody who's interested, and if there are any questions, I'm always here to kind of help. So just reach out, and yeah, we'll be back next week.
My last word would be to be gentle on yourself and to know that there's an infinite number of doors of understanding. It never stops. So then you just know you're on a journey.
Yeah. And I remember Jackie Ford saying to me when she came on, she was saying every thought's a gift, and that's something that spoke to me as well. But yeah, thank you so much, Bill. That was wonderful.
You're welcome. You're very welcome. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you very
bye-bye.
much.